Give him up! Delta, take him out! Have you got a visual?
Again, I have not watched one shot in a very long time. Almost like as if I've never seen it before. That's how long it's been. And if it weren't for the fact that we did a quick review on that episode, on that movie, I would not know anything about this movie or the setup for this movie. So here comes the sequel. Here comes One More Shot. This is Scott Adkins' newest film. Yeah, new release. Yay, new releases. It's
another one.
Being bombarded with new releases right now.
January is becoming the dumping ground for action movies, martial arts films. I mean, that's good for us, but because we are trying to put out content and stay up to date with everything that's coming out when we can, it's becoming a little much, but hey, more content for everybody who listens. So I guess that's a win, right?
You're going to be hearing episodes that we recorded forever ago, but just kept on getting pushed back because of new releases. Not really a complaint. I'm glad we're getting more content, a lot more, action, especially martial arts related adjacent content that's out there. Hey, I'm all for it. I definitely want to see what this movie was all about. Although I will say I didn't have the highest expectation. If you remember my recollection or my small 2 cents on the first movie, because I didn't really remember too much. I just thought it was very forgettable. I didn't have high expectations for this movie. So here we are with One More Shot. And going into the film, I had no idea what even happened in the first movie, and I feel like this movie does a pretty vague recap of the first movie. It's almost like a required watch to have watched the first one.
I would disagree with you there. I don't think it's actually necessary.
No, man.
He's just a guy that comes in, and they have to deal with stuff. I mean, I watched the first one recently. I don't remember everything beat for beat, but coming into this, I just know that, okay, well, these are characters and they're in this situation now, and that's just what it is. It helps having that connection to the first movie, but I don't personally think it's necessary.
A cell in Europe has been trying to build a dirty bomb. We traced it to DC.
The detainees that come here do not depart until we've properly vetted.
Are you a mean man, Sawyer?
It's been a terrible mistake.
We screw up and one of these guys hurts the homeland, it's all over CNN.
There are moments where it feels like, having watched the first movie, it doesn't just feel like these characters just kind of come out of the blue. And that's what it feels like for me, at least. I just had to kind of rack my brain, like, I'm trying to remember what happened in the first movie. But you are right in the fact that you don't have to have watched the first movie in order to appreciate this film. But there are moments where I was like, I feel like this is quite literally taking place right after the first film. So it feels like a continuation. Yeah. So, having some sort of reference point would have been nice. And the movie really just kind of keeps moving along, like speeding along. It's like, don't forget about the first movie, but there are some callbacks in terms of what transpired in the first film, and it's like vague allusions to that film. So, but that doesn't really matter, I guess, in the grander scheme of things, because if you're watching this movie, chances are you've already watched the first movie. So, kind of give that a slide, or give it a pass. And I weirdly enjoyed this movie. Weirdly enough, yeah, was surprised by that.
So I was going to say, it's so this is a sequel, and I think this is one of those cases where it is a sequel that does what a sequel should do. Because generally, not always generally, but usually you get the bigger budget because the first movie is better, so you can take what works in the first movie and you can expand on it. You can make things bigger. You can do things more elaborately and you raise the stakes, right? So this is kind of like the first movie, but sequelified, literally, because we have the bigger location, we have more of the bigger budget, we have more elaborate action, we have more elaborate camera work, and then fight scenes, everything that you would want from a sequel, because the first movie is very much a direct-to-video action film. Mm-hmm. You can see the limitations of what they did, but I think director James Nunn does a really good job within those limitations doing the fake one-take movie.
Yeah.
And here, because of the more elaborate location, we are now in an airport, a real airport. The fact that he is taking this camera and taking our actors and taking these characters throughout the many different spots of the airport, I think is just kind of amazing what they were able to plan out. I'm thinking of the technical aspects behind this, the whole, the scheduling and just making sure everything is cooperating in order to get this stitched together one take to work from beginning to end.
Prepare to breathe! No! Come on, go!
You're saying some buzzwords there that could be controversial, like stitched together, fake one-er. There are moments in this film that, maybe at the 18-minute mark or the 48-minute mark, like who's counting, right? But there are moments where I've noticed where like, oh yeah, they could easily have hidden a cut here. But for the most part, yeah, it really does feel pretty smooth and seamless, and you can totally like gloss over that. You don't have to like buy that any mind. It's still very impressive for the most part.
That we should mention, though, I guess for people who don't realize it, that the first movie is supposedly shot in one take. It's not. It's stitched together, but it's pretty seamless. And if you have an eye for those things, you can spot, okay, the camera's moving in this direction, or it's whip panning like this. Maybe they hit a cut there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's zooming into a monitor, so on and so forth. Or all the things you've seen in stitched together one take. It happens in fight scenes, but this is on a grander level because it's throughout the whole movie. Mm-hmm. I think what's really impressive in the sequel is if you're not really looking for it, you're not going to notice a lot of the places where they're going to stitch together the beginning and the ends of scenes. The first time I watched it, I really didn't want to look because I know that can kind of take me out of it if I'm being so nitpicky. Mm-hmm. And I realized that, oh wow, we're just going. We've just been going on, and besides the obvious moments where the camera is moving outside of a moving vehicle, it's like, okay, yeah, obviously because of stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Besides that, I was just thinking, wow, we've been following these characters throughout this airport for so long. Like I haven't even really realized that there's probably been cuts.
Yeah.
And somewhere hidden in there.
Yeah, it really does help that the story. Well, the story's not simple, but it's pretty straightforward in terms of like how we get from point A to point B and how the story the story unfolds in a very organic way. Lots of tension, lots of drama. What is the story, right? It's about one of the characters who is deemed the terrorist from the first movie. I really don't recall the character's name, but he is returning in this movie, and he is aware of a shipment that is being sent through the airport, and it has a bomb. Of course, it does, and there are, I guess, Contra fighters. I don't know. Like there are folks here who are trying to weaponize that bomb, but they have to find it first. It's in a shipment container. They don't know where it is. They need to figure out which number it is, and only this one guy knows. So Scott Adkins is on a mission to not only protect this one said supposed terrorist, even though he's not, and also his pregnant estranged wife. That's really it in a nutshell. But there's a lot of espionage and double crossing. That also, not a lot, but there's some of that going on in here there as well.
If that bomb goes off, everybody's dead.
All teams are in position. Nothing's getting in or out. president takes the stage in 90 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, the idea that we are still not exactly sure if he's a terrorist or not. Even after watching this twice, I was still a little unsure of that myself. I feel like I might have missed a few lines of dialogue that maybe cleared that up, or maybe not. Maybe it's supposed to feel vague. But the character's name is Amin Mansour, played by Waleed El Ghadi. And our hero, Scott Adkins, returns. So in the first movie, he was assigned with getting the Mansour character out of this situation where other terrorists were trying to capture this one supposed terrorist, the Mansour guy.
Spartan 01, this is Phoenix Actual. We are under attack.
He tells us where that bomb is, we can radio it in. I am not a terrorist, please.
And now, when the movie starts, they have left that situation. He's kind of dropped them off. And what happens is Scott Adkins immediately, for some reason, notices men walking by, and he's like, they look shady. Let me go beat them up, and just jumpstart the whole movie.
They were talking, he was eavesdropping, and he was hearing them talking about kidnapping. It's like just the word kidnapping. He's like, oh okay, I need to attend to that now.
He was supposed to be paying attention to what his wife said.
Yeah. But
he wasn't.
Was it bros before hoes? Missions before hoes? I don't know. Whatever. So there's all that going on, and I'm what I'm trying to circle back to is the fact that there's a lot of tension when there's not action. There's the story kind of unraveling, so it always feels like the movie is moving along. It never feels like there's too much. I wouldn't say there's no lulls. There are moments where there are lulls. However, it's extremely and incredibly excusable because you can just feel the actors who are not on screen. They are just in the back getting as much water and electrolytes as possible before the next moment that they appear back on camera.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure
it's totally
this is
excusable.
I'm sure this is a crew of many people cycling in and out. I'm sure anybody who is a stunt person is cycling in and out between deaths. I believe some of the on-screen fighters also probably did stunts in the background. That's how they're labeled in the credits. But yeah, so anytime we get slow points, because obviously there's a lot of action, there's a lot of extraction type moments where people are trying to escape. They're getting into these action set pieces, these action scenes, these fights. And anytime things slow down, which they should, we get small character moments or we get things that are moving the plot along appropriately. It never feels like we're dwindling too long on things. We get an understanding of the stakes. And there is this constant looming threat that they may get captured or they may get killed. So Scott Adkins, again, he's kind of in an escort mission because that was kind of happening in the first movie. Here, he's escorting 2 people now, so it's a sequel 2 times the escorts. And we just get that tension of him trying to figure out what's going on. Yep. Is he really in cahoots with the people that are killing everybody around them? Can he protect Mansour? And on top of that, his pregnant wife, because of course she's pregnant. And thank God the movie didn't have her go into labor somewhere during the course of this. I was expecting a firefight to shoot out. She's like, oh, my water broke. And they're like, ah!
Amin Mansour.
Do you know why you're here?
A lot of people could die tonight. I'm not leaving his side till we find out where that device is. No Mansour, no code. No code, no package.
We need to find Mansour.
Oh, man. Well, I mean, we did nearly have a moment where Scott Adkins had to punch a pregnant lady in the stomach. I'm like, oh, man, I don't want to see this.
Very uncomfortable stuff, yeah.
Yeah, I'll watch the film. You'll know what we're talking about. I had this nagging question in my head, and this is more for you because you actually watched the first movie recently. I barely remember what was your final verdict in terms of our recent one-shot episode? Because okay, let me back up. I don't remember the first movie because even though I commend it for its effort, I found the movie kind of forgettable. Here it doesn't feel that way. And I don't know if you feel the same way. Do you feel like this is a huge step up from the first film? Is it just because of the budget, or do you think it's just a multitude of different things? Because I'm curious. Like for me, like this works, whereas the first movie just did not. It was like it felt gimmicky for me. It was like no, wait, okay, it's not gimmicky. It besides the gimmick, which is it's all one take, right? I was like, well, the story doesn't really get me. Like I wasn't too enthralled with the action, and I just gave it a pass because I was like, okay, yeah, whatever. Like it's a one take. I just have to commend it for what it is. But here's like the movie's just overall, like much more well done. I was pretty engaged for the most part. There are some snags here and there, but much more solid film. So I don't know. What are your thoughts here?
Well, I like the first one. I think the first one is much simpler. They set a story in that environment of them being, ambushed from these terrorists trying to infiltrate the base. And if you think about it, it's so simple because they're trying to escape. Terrorists are encroaching on their position. So they're holding down the fort. And how long can that fort be held down? What are the various things they need to do to get support, to escape gunfire, so on and so forth. It's so I don't want to say minimal. It's just simple. I think it's just much more simpler. Maybe that's why it could have been more forgettable for you.
Yeah,
I personally
think that's exactly
liked it. It's a little. I think the director compared the first one. So the first one for him is like Call of Duty. And then this one's a little more Metal Gear. This one's a little more... It's a little slower. Yeah. It's a little more thought out. And I think this integrates those... Like I mentioned before, it integrates those slower moments better with the story. Mm-hmm. So, I think this one just works because the writing, the way it's thought out, and the way it's paced works so well. You have the action, then you have the lulls, you have the dialogue, things ramp up. It can be a little slower because it's not constant barrage of firefights like the first one is. So I think the action in this one is a little more evened out.
Yeah, you say that. Although I think that's where my eyes kind of glazed over with the first movie. It became kind of like samey after a while, just like seeing a black gunplay.
Lots of duck and cover, right? Duck and cover, over shooting over things, blind fire around corners, right?
Yeah, this movie kind of rectifies that. It's much more varied. I feel like there's a lot more, variety in terms of the overall action. There's a lot of things going on. A lot more. I mean, again, a hazy memory here, but it feels like there's a lot more hand-to-hand combat here. I don't remember the first movie having as much.
The first movie only has 2 fights, I believe. 2 real exchanges of hand-to-hand,
and they're quick, right?
Well, there's one moment where he's infiltrating a little house, and it becomes Metal Gear, where people are slowly coming at him, and he's taking them out. Then he has one fight in the jail cell. Then he has one fight at the end with the final person. And that's more drawn out. Here, I think because they found good points in where to stitch together the scenes, that they gave appropriate time for the actors to rest so that they can do choreography and not have to do acting, do a lot of movement on screen, and then go into a fight.
Give him up! Take him out! Have you got a visual?
It's great because he has a lot more adversaries this time around that he can go against. He fights Aaron Toney, who is the second. I guess he's like the second bad guy, second to Michael Jai White.
He's the mini boss.
Yeah. And every time he fights him, it's like, oh wow, this is like really well thought out choreography. And I mean, if it weren't for the fact that I'm just gonna speculate, because for me to definitively say that it's stitched together might be a disservice in case it is a oneer, that the whole movie's a oneer. I'm I'm just gonna say allegedly a Warner, a stitched together movie. It's like, what if? Anyways, it's very impressive because after like so many minutes, like freaking an hour in, like we're getting great choreography. I'd say that this is like the fight choreography between Scott Adkins and any of the other performers in the film, like Aaron Toney, even like Michael Jai White towards the end of the film, like that. It's in the realm of like a martial arts choreography. Like you're seeing a lot of the strikes that you expect in your quote unquote traditional martial arts film, with the caveat that they're tired, so they're gonna move a little bit more sluggishly. So like it's fine, it's excusable. It's a little, I can't say it's not cinematic. It's still really well done, but you have to excuse the fact that like, oh, there isn't the big like the perfect angle that the camera's capturing it, and like the over the hip throw that this guy's going for, it wasn't like didn't have that huge impact. Like it's fine. Like you can completely excuse it. For the most, I'd still say that the choreography is, like what you expect from a martial arts film. So that's why I was like really impressed with this movie. I was not expecting it to be able to capture that element of martial arts in this movie. I thought it was just gonna be generic action movie, like slugfest. Scott Adkins throws a haymaker, and the other guy throws a haymaker back, or he tackles him, and then whoever gets the gun first wins, and then move on. Right.
So I do like the choreography in this movie. It is a step up from the first one because we get more of it. It looks a little samey to me, but that's not trying to be negative. I think I'm saying that because when I look at all the fights kind of back to back to back, I think I understand the limitations of what they can do with the choreography, because there's only so much they can do, because I want to say there's maybe 3 or 4 major fights in the movie, and if you think about it, they're all one take fights. So if you think of a major Hollywood production or a bigger budget production, one take fights take a long time to stage and set up and choreograph. So the fact that they're doing like 3 or 4, right? Yeah. I understand that they need to scale them down a little bit. So when I'm seeing choreography, when you see the hands doing exchanges, you're seeing lots of the same blocks a little bit, but then they mix it up with the throws, and I think that's where it excels. And I really like that Aaron Toney is the reoccurring physical menace. He fights Scott.
Sure.
He fights Scott in the beginning, or somewhere towards the beginning, and he doesn't die. I was like, ooh, he didn't die. And then he pops up again. I was like, oh, great, they're fighting again. Then he fights him again. I was like, yes. But the problem with Aaron Toney is we have Michael Jai White in the movie. And what the hell happened with Michael Jai White?
You can't stop this. It's too big.
How is he second build and he only has 2 scenes?
Well, it's funny you say scene. I'm like, it's just one long scene technically, but
scene. Yeah,
sure. But he only appears twice in the movie. I even made a comment in my head like he had enough time to go like on a bathroom break, take a shower, like go get a donut, like drive off set to get the donut, and come back for the final showdown with Scott Adkins. Because Michael Jai White was going to be the final fight, I was expecting him to... Oh, and also the fact that he's a villain, I was expecting like, okay, how is Scott Adkins going to defeat him? And I was like, I kept thinking about the Michael Jai White-isms. It's like, you can't show him dying on screen. It's just like, it's probably part of his contract or something. He doesn't die. Like, he's not allowed to. So, like, of course, yeah, like, it's something of that caliber. It does, I won't exactly say what it is, but it's like, okay. It doesn't end with, like, Michael Jai White was defeated, let's just say,
Right. There is an element that if you don't catch on it, you'll forget, but something that Scott does maybe like halfway through the movie comes back in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's it. I mean, if he was really going to defeat Michael Jai White, he probably should have poured gasoline all over him because they're at the airport.
Yeah,
set him on fire. You're gonna get turned into
comes
a
back
hell
a spawn.
Yeah, of course.
See you in hell, Al.
My Michael Jai White, he's not really in the movie much.
So weird.
I don't even know what he is. Is he really like? He's not the mastermind, is he? Because
he's the mastermind of everything at the airport, I believe, or he is the leader of the insurgency at the airport. Because there is somebody else running things behind the scenes, and I don't want to discuss it too much because that's kind of spoiler stuff. But I think this movie is probably going to do well. So I think when they wrote it, they're like, okay, one last shot, right? I mean, I think that's pretty much a given. So everything that you can see happening in little subtle dialogue hints, maybe not so subtle, is setting up for a third movie. And with what happens with Michael Jai White, I hope comes back. I hope he comes back to annoy Scott Adkins as Hellspawn, right?
Okay, but it's your funeral.
I'm surprised that I enjoyed the movie as much as I did. Is it perfect? No, but that's not the point of this. It's like it's entertaining. It's definitely strange to me how much better it is than the first movie. Like, I don't think I'll forget this one as much as the first movie did. So yeah, I think overall I would recommend this movie. There are very few complaints I have overall. I think the action department was where it surprised me the most, and that's where action heads will definitely get a kick out of it. Even martial arts heads, like I'd say, because I thought we were gonna go into this episode thinking like, the action's fine, but like, man, after watching this, I was like, holy shit, that's pretty good. They actually choreographed this. Good on them. So yeah, hopefully this movie does do well, and I'm hoping the last movie will be more like this movie and not like the first.
Okay. I mean, I like the first, so I hope that if they do a next one, it is still raising the bar, right? Because this one definitely raises its bar because they increase the size of the location. It becomes more complex in how they're traversing everything in that location, especially with the fights as well. So I hope that it does get better. With the fights, do you think that air train fight was real?
Man,
I really would love to know if that's real.
Right, because it doesn't diving into it movie. It's not a spoiler, but there is a fight that's going to happen on that air train, and the amount of precision and timing that is involved, because the air train is supposedly going from point A to point B.
Yeah.
And they're fighting on between point A and point B. In order for that to have lined up perfectly, the fight has to have been mapped out and timed and exactly when they arrived.
Cavalry ain't coming. I have to stop this.
I want to give them credit and think that it is. That it is real, that it's not just maybe some green screen effect. I was trying to figure that out. I was trying to look in the background and see if the lights are matching up. That was the only time where I got really nitpicky because I got really excited. Yeah. The fact that they're on a real air train traveling from the airport to another location, I thought that's amazing. They're fighting on the train where you really shouldn't be jostling around the car like that. So this is a real airport, by the way. I think we didn't mention this before. This is an actual airport in London. So everything that's in operation is real. So like it's all real air train. Like when it has to be real, right? Because if they're getting off the air train and he exits the train, the camera is like following him. It's like, oh, that's the actual platform. there's no trickery there. So like when the train is moving, it doesn't look fake. I can't imagine how they could fake that unless the train was never moving. I don't know.
Hard to tell. I mean, you can, because of the stitched togetherness of this movie, if they planned it right, they could whip pan one location into another location, right? Blend it seamlessly digitally, as long as the colors, as long as the levels all look the same. They can make, because after the air train, they go to kind of like an abandoned part of the airport, and I thought, this doesn't look anything like the airport, and I wasn't even thinking about it though, because the transition was so smooth. But now that I'm thinking about it now, I was like, oh, I feel like that could have easily just been like a soundstage that they blended to get in there. But yeah, I digress. Yeah.
So again, you said stitched together. I'm gonna say that you did that with air quotes, okay? Because you guys are listening. So again, allegedly stitched together. I weirdly would love to see if the behind the scenes in this, just know if it really was, but I doubt that they have any footage like that because there's just too many moving parts. I can't imagine a third crew trying to like observe everything as it's happening. Like just too many possibilities of error going on there. Yeah. But anyways, like I digress. I will say that definitely check the movie out. I'm looking forward to the third movie if they have one. If the movie does well enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I enjoyed this. This was so easy to sit through. There's slow points, obviously, but it's feeding you information. So when you're watching it, you're trying to figure out, okay, well, where are we going next? What are we doing now? So nothing feels really extraneous. Maybe you could say, like, oh, well, why did we need to fight here? Why didn't we need to fight here? But because it's an action movie, we kind of need to have those exciting moments. And thankfully, towards the end, they start to really give us a lot. I think they're really fun. It's much different from the first movie. It's a little more stealthy. If you like stealthy action, then this will be up your alley. It's not so much fire, reverse, it's not so much an exchange of fire going on between people hiding behind, I don't know, waist-high barricades or something like that. Mm-hmm. So, one more shot.
Yeah. I guess I'm glad that I gave this series another chance.
God.